What's up, my Republic of Heroes? Heart Hero 456, Exo65 here. And while I'm planning on making some much bigger episodes in the How I Would Make series, I am kind of sort of thinking about something a little bit more drastic. See, the other episodes are taking a little bit longer for me to finish up, and currently, I am basically trying to make something, well, really special for the next big, long, and throbbing, yeah, I'm immature, episode of the How I Would Make series. So, while I am trying to come up with a phenomenal and fantastical idea for that next big episode, I want to do something just a little bit smaller here. More specifically, I want to talk about a topic that I am, for the most part, God, I'm stupid. This is why I think these podcast episodes should be scripted, because I'm stupid. I can't say shit properly. Me and the English language do not do well together, alright? We tried dating for a little bit. She cheated on me with a man named Espanol, and now I've met a fine lady named Irish. Or was it Iris? I can't fucking remember. The point is, getting into the whole, well, talking situation, I want to get back to actually talking about the main fucking topic. Which is what I'm supposed to do. Which is what these podcasts are about. And here I am, still being a complete and total idiot. See? I can't even say idiot correctly. But even with all of that being said, getting into the actual topic of today's video, I want to quickly let you all know something very important. I am a huge fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't think I've ever made that clear on this channel before. You know, minus the fact that I tried doing an entire Sonic Frontiers Let's Play, and the fact that I live streamed the game, and the fact that I literally made a video with GamerGuide 7 Aces on how I could fix the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. And the fact that some of the first videos on this channel were Sonic related. And the fact that there was also a bunch of other shit here that also had to do with Sonic. And the fact that I also have a Sonic Lost World Let's Play on there. But we're gonna ignore all of that for now. We're gonna ignore all of it because it's not that important. It's not that important. Yeah, it's not that big. Not that great. But I've never really talked about Sonic the Hedgehog. But you want to know what I have talked about? You want to know what I've really gotten into about when it comes to the good old-fashioned Sonic the Blue Hedgehog? That's right. Writing. At least, that's something I mentioned in my How I Would Fix Sonic video. Because believe it or not, writing, or the writing in general, for Sonic the Hedgehog has been kinda, sort of, maybe not the greatest. Like, at all. In fact, it's kind of been one of the worst experiences a Sonic fan can ever truly deal with. And this is coming from somebody who's been a Sonic fan for years. I can very proudly, well, not really proudly, but I can very distinctly and very surely say that when it comes down to it, Sonic the Hedgehog's writing is often something I feel like Sega needs to hire more Sonic fans to do. At least decent Sonic fans that know what the fuck they're doing. You know, like the person who wrote the Ghost of the Future comic books, or the one writing the Murder of Me comic books, or literally anyone who's making an actually decent and worthwhile comic based on Sonic on DeviantArt, Twitter, or literally anywhere else. Because I swear to God, in middle school, every time I got a fucking break and I could use the school laptop, I was going to DeviantArt and I was reading me some goddamn Ghost of the Future. Or watching one of those fucking fanfic videos of Sonic the Hedgehog and his friends apparently being in these weird as fuck relationships. I don't know, it's just weird as fuck, okay? But the biggest weird as fuck concept, and possibly the one thing that I'm sure every Sonic fan has wanted for a long ass time is, well, for some of the more American Sonic characters to finally make their way to the goddamn video games. Sonic the Hedgehog, in of itself, is a franchise that has had so many fucking characters But unlike Mario, that at least does small little things with these characters every once in a while, Sonic, for some reason, throws a lot of its characters under the bus by either never fucking using them or just trying to ignore their existence, even when many people have made it clear that they love these characters and adore these characters and think these characters deserve so much more. And yet, Sega, for some goddamn reason, refuses to acknowledge their existence and refuses to bring them back in an interesting or just a genuinely fun way. So that is where I come in, along with like hundreds of other fucking Sonic fans, because, well, surprise surprise, as a Sonic fan, I myself have made it very clear that I love the possible, fantastic, and genuinely beautiful idea of having the likes of Sally Acorn and the other Freedom Fighter characters show up and be a part of Sonic the Hedgehog video games. And boy, I tell you what, I've got myself a fantastic, phenomenal, and genuinely beautiful idea that only a real Sonic fan could potentially write. Now, my idea might be a little contrived, but considering the concepts and ideas that have shown up in the Sonic franchise before, I'm gonna be real here. I do, for all intents and purposes, think that my concept might just be able to work. Because not only am I going to be using ideas and concepts that have shown up in Sonic the Hedgehog, well, consistently, but it'll fit right in with Sonic's character. And pretty much everything else he has as well. This will be a story of love, of loss, of triumph, and of genuine beauty. I think. I haven't really, haven't really put this up to any like big professional writing critics or anything, but I'm trying. Okay, I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to make things as good as possible, Just trying to do what I can to prove to everyone that I really am a true Sonic fan. So yes, let's get into this. For this is how I would make a Sonic game story with the Freedom Fighters. Now let's get into this, shall we? Don't you wanna feel right again? Don't you wanna feel whole? Don't you wanna feel... Alright. So now that I've gotten your attention and have your intrigue, I was wondering, or better yet, I'm pretty sure you're wondering, exactly how I would introduce the Freedom Fighters in that way. What exactly would I do in order to get these iconic characters into the games without having to fundamentally change a lot of their backstory? Or really get into the nitty-gritty of everything that, makes these characters what they are? Well, simple. For you see, the idea of alternate dimensions has been something that's existed in Sonic since the game Sonic Rush. And I'm pretty sure you can already see where I'm going with this, but let me just go ahead and reveal what it is. These guys are going to come from an alternate dimension. And this time I'm actually going to use the alternate dimension concept in a way that actually works. Not like the whole classic Sonic is just a Sonic from another dimension bullshit that we have now. I mean, by actually making it so where the alternate dimension stuff genuinely makes sense. And actually fits with how alternate dimensions do work in fiction. So let's start off with the obvious. The way I plan on starting off this game story is going to be simple. Eggman, after his most recent defeat for whatever Sonic game came before this one, is going to be taking a bit of a break. Or at least he's going to be disappearing for a few months. In fact, he's going to be gone so long that Sonic and friends are going to be a little bit, well, worried. And they're not necessarily going to fully understand what the hell is going on. They're not going to know where Eggman is, GUN won't be able to find him anywhere on the planet, and the supposed businesses that Eggman mentioned in the Twitter takedown situation have all just kinda stopped, as when they figured out exactly what those businesses were, that being huge casinos, carnivals, and a bunch of other stuff that he runs. Turns out they're just not there anymore. And Eggman, being Eggman, is definitely plotting something big, something destructive, something horrible. But Sonic and friends don't really seem to worry about it. At least Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Knuckles don't seem to worry about it. In fact, they're actually so not worried about it that they're planning a beach party on Angel Island. Yep, a full-on ass beach party, where, of course, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy are the first people to be there. They got food set up, they got time, they got a few games thrown around. Tails is building an entire, robotic volleyball net, because apparently a normal volleyball net is just not cool enough. And they're all just relaxing. That is until, out of nowhere, a huge portal begins to open up above Angel Island. Well, okay, it's not a huge portal, it's just you know how when you see those big-ass swirling clouds in the sky and they start spinning and it almost looks like a tornado? And then a huge bolt of energy flies down, lands in the center of the beach, and a portal opens up. And out steps none other than everyone's favorite chipmunk Sonic character that they can't stop drawing horrible fan art of, Sally the Acorn. Okay, I'm messing with you. Sally Acorn. She pops out of it. And she's wearing some pretty cool gear, honestly. The outfit that I would like Sally to have would be sort of a mix between the, blue jacket outfit she's usually seen wearing and, the black shorts she ends up wearing in later issues of the comics. I know technically the characters don't actually have, tits or anything. That's just something they gave Rouge because, femme fatale espionage and all that shit. But yeah, Sonic characters do not canonically have titties. That is not an actual canon thing. They don't have feet, they don't have tits, they don't got nothing. So all you perverted fan artists out there, just know you are not anatomically correct, and you will be failing your art classes. If you still go to college, that is. Anyway, with all that being said, Sally is basically going to be calling for Sonic, or at least the Sonic entity, as, she's calling him. Obviously, when Sonic asks what the heck is going on, Sally ends up making it clear that there's something horrible happening in her dimension. There's a horrible, horrible robotic man going around and causing destruction. And, she's been terrorizing... this man has been terrorizing Sally's entire dimension for, the past few years. Now, of course, this is another little thing I want to throw in here. Due to Sally's world taking place in another dimension, it doesn't work on the same time frame as Sonic's world does. Clearly, time flows differently there. And, a few months in Sonic's world is a few years in Sally's. And so, here's where things get a little bit tricky. Because Sonic, obviously, wants to help Sally, but Sonic's friends, more specifically Knuckles, Tails, and Amy, aren't too sure. This could be some type of trap, Sally could be a robot made by Eggman or something, but after Tails pulls off a really cool little X-ray scanner device on her to see if she's an actual organic being, Tails makes it clear that she's a real person, and after studying the portal for a little bit, says that it is an actual legit portal. It can take them portal. He just doesn't know where it'll take them because he wasn't the one who opened it. But Sonic, of course, genuinely not wanting to let down someone in need, pretty much says that as long as his friends are able to come along, he'll be able to come in and help anyone he can. And that's when Sally, of course, agrees and, Well, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy leave a message on the table for anyone that shows up to the party, and of course, hops through the portal. I wanted this to have sort of a happy-go-lucky, simplistic opening because honestly, that just kind of fits the Sonic narrative. Sonic has always been able to mix dark tones and, genuine epicness with a sense of kid-friendliness as well. Stuff is gonna look epic as shit, but, it's Sonic. It's not supposed to be too destructive or too big or something incredibly drastic until much, much later in the story. This is where we get, fantastic stories like Sonic Adventure 2 and, I guess, Shadow's part of Sonic 06. Stuff like that. Anyway, with all of that being said, getting into the actual story, or at least the rest of the story of the game, here's my big explanation here. For you see, it's very clear that the person who's taken over Sally's world is Eggman. And let me tell you exactly how the hell he did it. See, as the game goes on, Sonic and friends, or the friends that end up going into Sally's world, end up trying to figure out exactly how the hell Eggman got there in the first place. And well, turns out, throughout the game, as you play through and get to more cutscenes, you end up figuring out that the way Eggman was able to get to Sally's dimension was by, well, simply creating a portal to another dimension. This is something that makes sense for Eggman to be able to do because he's an incredibly smart character, and considering he was able to travel to Blaze's dimension back in Sonic Rush and understands how dimensional travel works and has robots that can literally teleport, it makes sense he would eventually figure this shit out. But he specifically needed to go to a dimension that not only had life that he could conquer, but also, for all intents and purposes, actually didn't have an equivalent of Sonic. Because think about it. The Sol Dimension has Blaze. Blaze is the Sol Dimension's Sonic equivalent. So, it would only really make sense that if Eggman wanted to succeed, he needed to find a dimension that didn't have a Sonic. And we even kind of see in Sonic Prime that without Sonic being in any dimension, a version of Eggman is gonna be capable of kicking ass and actually taking over. And yeah, Sonic Forces also kind of has that too, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of the whole shtick here. Eggman needed to be in a dimension where no version of Sonic, no equivalent of Sonic, could properly stand up to him. And when he found a world that didn't seem to have much power in it in the first place, he knew that the Acorn Kingdom would be his perfect new Eggman Empire. So yeah, he invaded the Acorn Kingdom, took over the castles and everything, and then proceeded to wage war with the other kingdoms in this dimension. And that's basically what's going on here. The main plot and premise of this game is going to be pretty simple. You see, most of the other kingdoms believe that the Acorn Kingdom is 100% taken down. But when Sally manages to bring Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy back to their, main hub, the idea is going to be that Sonic and friends are going to go to other kingdoms from the Sonic Universe comics and try to recruit them so that they can finally take down Eggman once and for all. This will allow us to introduce other really cool characters from the Sonic the Hedgehog comic books, the Archie comic books, like Lupe the Fox and Hershey the Cat, Dulcie the Dragon, Mina Mongoose, heck, just a bunch of different characters that would be phenomenally cool to introduce. And of course, I also kind of want this to be a really cool and fun introduction to a villain from the Archie comic books that would make a fantastic supersonic boss fight. Interjack. Now, for those of you who don't know, Interjack is a character that appears in the Sonic the Hedgehog comic series and was basically a malevolent chaos demigod whose essence was just scattered, and I mean scattered, across, like, this place called the Chaos Force. Now, while I don't think I'm going to introduce ideas like the Chaos Force or anything in this game, the idea that I sort of have here is that Eggman does end up figuring out that this world does have its own Chaos Emerald equivalents, which are going to be those two really cool stones from the end of the original Sonic the Hedgehog OVA. And I'm just going to say this right now, Eggman is looking for these things because in Sally's dimension, these things are so damn powerful that they could match the power of all 7 Chaos Emeralds. Meaning Eggman wouldn't necessarily need the Chaos Emeralds, but just in case, I want to also establish that, well, before he left for this other dimension, he just so happened to collect all 7 of them puppies right after the events of, say, oh, I don't know, Sonic Frontiers or something, since they tend to scatter every time Sonic finishes using them. And, well, this would end up leading to Eggman also having a huge edge up against anyone in Sally's dimension, since those 2 really cool stones that I mentioned earlier, which now that I think about it were called the Deep Power Stones, which, I'm gonna be real here, it's just kind of lazy. But fuck it, that's what they are. They're gonna be called the Deep Power Stones here, or we could call them something like the Chaos Stones or something. And Eggman is clearly trying to get after them because if he has this universe's versions of the Chaos Emeralds and, well, his own universe's versions of the Chaos Emeralds, then honestly, I think it would be really fucking cool to see, like just how dire this situation is. Sonic and friends didn't know the situation they were getting into, and surprise, surprise, they're gonna stick through it because they genuinely want to help this person. They feel responsible because Eggman is their villain and he came to this dimension to fuck shit up. So obviously Sonic and friends are gonna be there to kick some ass and hopefully help Sally and her friends find the Deep Power Stones. Now the character Sally ends up introducing Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Knuckles to is of course gonna be, you know, your basic characters, Bunny Rabbit, Antoine de Coulette. We got Nicole, who is gonna look very similar to how she did in the comic books. You know, the hollow minx. I think she was. Was she a minx? Yeah, no, a lynx. That's what I'm thinking of. She's obviously them. You got Rotor, everyone's favorite. What was he? A seal? I think he was a seal. And of course, I also want to introduce the likes of, you know, how do I say this? I really don't know how to say this because I genuinely think most people aren't going to like this character. But I also want to introduce Fiona Fox. Mainly because I've got a really cool idea on how Fiona could be used in this game. And I also want to introduce the idea that she could try to use her feminine wiles to persuade Tails. But since I want to write video game Tails better than normal Tails, he's going to turn her down instantly or just not be interested in anything. And in fact, I want him to be the one to figure out that Fiona's working for Eggman because, yeah, that's what she's fucking doing in this game, in this series. Anyway, the idea is basically like this. Eggman goes to another dimension, takes it over, Sonic gets brought into it, and it just so happens to be the dimension with the Freedom Fighter characters. But of course, I'm sure you all want me to really flesh out this idea. You're asking Josh, you sexy, sexy moron, what would the entire story be? Like, what would the interactions be? What would the characters do when they interact with each other? How would this be fully fleshed out? And to that I say, here's how I'm gonna fucking do it. So I've already basically laid the groundwork for it. The main plot is here. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy goes into this dimension. I'm repeating myself way too many goddamn times. But basically, their main missions here are to go around and basically, you know, find a way to recruit other countries to come and help, you know, to basically come and help the Freedom Fighters kick the ass of Eggman. Now, here's what's going to happen. The first big mission Sonic and friends are going to go into, and more specifically the type of gameplay I want for this game, is that I want this to be a Sonic game with multiple playable characters. This isn't going to be a game where you just play as Sonic, but the idea is that I want to work it similarly to how Sonic 06 handled its multiple playable characters. As in, you start off the stage playing as one character, you get to a certain part of the stage, and you switch to another character. And the reason why I want to do it like this is because I believe that this form of gameplay can work really, really well and feel really, really seamless if it's done properly. And I also kind of want to be able to sort of, pull in some characters that would actually feel necessary to play as. Like, for example, for more combat-centered levels, you would have, the likes of Knuckles or Antoine or Bunny show up. Which, by the way, Antoine's characterization is going to be way different here than he was in the original. He's not going to start off as a fucking sniveling coward that becomes badass. In fact, him and Bunny are going to start off as a goddamn couple, like a fucking power couple. And, literally, they're just going to be flirting most of the time during their interactions. Simply because I just want to see that happen. It's adorable, it's cute, and I fucking loved when they became a couple in the comics. Honestly, the best couple in the fucking comics. But anyway, with all that being said, getting back to the actual story, the way I plan on this working is that the first big mission is going to be having you playing as Sonic and Sally, really getting their dynamic down. And before you ask, no, I'm not going to put them in a relationship. Not at the moment. I feel like for the video games, Sonic and Amy works better, and as much as I would love to put a polyamory couple in Sonic the Hedgehog, I don't think Sega would allow it, and I think most Sonic fans would be too goddamn ridiculous in order to accept that idea. I really do think most Sonic fans wouldn't fucking accept it. But I also introduced the idea of the time situation, where, believe it or not, yeah, if Sonic and Sally were to ever truly be together in these games, Sonic would literally have to give up being in one of the two dimensions. He would have to live in Sally's dimension, where multiple years would pass for him, but it would only be a few months in the other dimension. Or he could live in his home dimension, which is a choice he'd probably end up making anyway, and after a few months, Sally would be like a few years older. So obviously, that wouldn't necessarily work out. And Sonic wouldn't just want to give up one group of friends for another group of friends, But basically, this big mission that they get sent on is a recon mission. It's a mission to get as much information as possible, and the way they plan on doing this is by Sally using Nicole to hack into a computer to get a map of Eggman's entire kingdom. While Sonic proceeds to, for the most part, beat the shit out of any robot that Sally can't handle. Because here's the thing, while Sally in the comic books can fight, she is nowhere near as strong as Sonic. And considering how powerful Sonic is, I'd say it makes sense that he'd escort her into this place so that they could get a bunch of information. Not only that, but watching Knuckles, Amy, and Tails interact with the other Freedom Fighters would be fantastic. Like seeing Tails and Rotor work together on the portal in the background would be pretty damn cool. And just seeing how both of their technical minds bounce off each other really well would just be really fucking fun. That's something I don't fully remember reading in the original Archie comic books, but hey, if it's there, I'm more than happy to go back and read those issues. But even with all that being said, getting into this whole, debacle and this whole shtick as a whole, I want to make it clear that, story-wise, the character interactions and the missions the characters go on, I haven't fully written out. I haven't fully fleshed this idea out. This is mainly just a crackshot idea, but the story is where it is, and this is what I want to talk about right now. More specifically because after the whole recon mission thing, Sonic is truly going to understand how dire the situation is, and his cockiness is going to drop a lot after this mission. Because during the situation, Sally is obviously going to be annoyed at Sonic for being incredibly cocky and thinking he can just rush into Eggman's lab. But once they get the map and bring it back to Knothole, because that's what I'm going to call it, fucking Knothole, that's when we're going to see that's when Sonic is going to see firsthand just how much progress Eggman has made. Not only that, but we're not even going to physically see Eggman throughout this entire game. We're not going to physically fucking see him. He's gonna be like talking from robots, radios, and whatnot, and we won't see him physically until the end of the game. And this is mainly because I want his design to change up a bit to look very similar to how it looked in Sonic SatAM. I would just fucking love if that's, like, that's just something I would love to see in an actual game. A 3D version of that Eggman. It would be fucking hilarious, and I think it would be, like, really fantastic if they actually went out of their, if Sega would actually go out of their way to change Eggman's design that drastically, just to show how much he's changed. Not only would it be cool, but it would just be fucking, like, badass, honestly. It's just something that I think, like, it would just show the amount of effort and love Sega would have for something like this if this were to be an actual official Sonic project. But for all intents and purposes, minus me constantly going on all these ridiculous as shit tangents, to get back to the story, what happens next is Sonic spends a good amount of time fighting, like, in trying to, like, grapple with how Eggman could get this powerful so quickly. And the big thing that catches his eye is the fact that the map also reveals the location of the 7 Chaos Emeralds. And Sonic's like, if we're gonna beat Eggman, we need those gems. We need to find them. We need to make sure that those get away from Eggman. And Sonic's like, we need to go for those things first, only for Nicole to basically say, we can't. These are the most heavily guarded facilities in the Eggman Empire, and they most likely can and will get killed if they try to attack them. And of course, Sonic looks at Tails, Knuckles, and Amy and is like, but we can. Like, come on, Knuckles. Like, come on, Tails. Come on, Amy. We can go fight them. And then, like, Amy, Knuckles, and Tails are like, Sonic, you're being stupid. I get that we usually take down Eggman easily this time, but we've been spending some time with these guys, and they've told us all the stuff Eggman has done. Remember, 2 years, 2 months back home is 2 years here. And if we want to make sure we can get back home sooner rather than later, we might need to take our time with this. And of course, Sonic is just fucking distraught at this point. He's like, damn, I guess here Eggman is actually won. This isn't going to be easy. This requires effort, time, planning. And of course, that's when we get to the next big missions, where Sally basically says, well, now that we understand where the Eggman Empire, now that we have a full overview of the Eggman Empire, what I think we need next is to finally find a way to communicate with the outside kingdoms. Every kingdom outside of us thinks that we're destroyed. They think that no one else in the Acorn Kingdom is around. They think that all of the soldiers have been turned into these horrifying cyborg-like robots, and they believe that, well, that there's no reason to keep fighting. But if we can contact some of the outside kingdoms, then we might be able to recruit them to our cause. And of course, this ends up leading to, well, a really cool mission where we get to play as Tails, and as well, like, we get to play as Tails and, well, Bunny and Antoine. Now, the characters I've chosen to play... Now, I'm just going to straight up tell you that the characters that will be playable in this game are Sonic, Sally, Antoine, Bunny, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. Those are the first characters you get to play as. You won't get to play as Nicole, you won't get to play as Rotor, and that's basically it for the most part. I don't remember every single classic Freedom Fighter character, but I know for a fact that you're sure as shit not going to be able to play as, as fucking Rotor. Okay? Rotor's not playable here. I mean, I'm sure there's something that could eventually make him playable, but he's not playable here. Sorry. Sorry for all you Rotor fans out there. He won't be playable in my story. But anyway, what ends up happening is that this mission pretty much requires Tails, Bunny, and Antoine to literally dig through the trash. They're breaking into a literal fucking, well, dump that Eggman has, where he basically gets rid of a lot of the technology that he's not using. And apparently Eggman is getting rid of a bunch of old communications tech to basically be boiled down into, literally be boiled down, turned into scrap metal, and then reused for new robots. So I guess it's not really a dump, it's more like a recycling plant. But basically what ends up happening is, with the recycling plant, you know, break in, we pretty much get this really, like, again, more interactions between them, where Tails, like, marvels at the tech used on Bunny, and Bunny pretty much is like, now listen here, Sugar, I don't want you to be talking about my arm and legs, okay? It's rude to talk about a lady's body parts like that. And Tails, of course, apologizes and is like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I wasn't trying to be rude. And she's like, it's fine, it's just a sensitive topic for me. If you've been in one of those robotization chambers, I'm sure you'd be scared to the dickens too. That's a terrible country accent. That is a terrible fucking country accent. And of course, Antoine, like, looks at Tails and is like, now listen here, boy. Sally might trust you, but I just want you to know that this is a terrible French accent. What the hell is wrong with me? God damn it. Look, the point is, Antoine and Bunny don't really get along with Tails at first, but once Tails shows that he's actually pretty damn good when it comes to making gadgets and kicking ass, they have a little respect for him by the end of this mission. And Tails is able to get the necessary equipment and parts to help Rotor make a proper, well, little satellite that can allow them to communicate and even hack into the communications of some of the outside countries. And 2 of the outside countries that they end up communicating with is a country filled with dragons, because yeah, fucking dragons, and a country filled with more animal characters similar to the likes of Sonic, Sally, and pretty much all them people. But yes, there is a dragon character who I do plan on introducing. Now, of course, when they do manage to make contact with these people, Sally ends up giving them the rundown and explaining that they're a freedom fighter ragtag group that plans on coming together and fighting for, well, everyone to save the Acorn Kingdom. But the other animalistic country, similar to Sally and everyone else, pretty much makes it clear that they don't feel like there's a real necessary reason to fight for, well, the Acorn Kingdom. And in fact, one of the leaders of this, you know, supposed military of the other person, a dude by the name of Jeffrey St. John, I think it was a skunk. Yeah, I think he's a skunk. Ends up basically saying, no, I don't want to, you know, we don't really want to help, because it seems like, you know, the entirety of this place is just absolutely, like, destroyed. There's no point trying to save it because it is, for all intents and purposes, nowhere near, you know, salvaging. This Robotnik guy, just let him keep the country, and if he tries to attack us, we'll be able to defend ourselves perfectly fine. Then Sonic tries to chime in and explain exactly that, you know, that he's got, like, the fucking Chaos Emeralds, and another dude by the name of Hamlin the Pig comes in on the radio and is like, maybe helping them wouldn't be so bad. I mean, our militaries aren't weak, and I'm pretty sure if we help these freedom fighters... That's when Jeffrey says, no, Hamlin, if we try to help them, then we are just setting up... Then we're basically admitting that we want to go to war with this robotic menace. And that's the last thing we want to do. The Dragon Country is already being attacked, and we definitely don't want to deal with any more problems. That's, of course, when Sonic gets an idea. He ends up basically telling Sally to hang up the phone and call the Dragon Country. And, of course, tell them that they're bringing reinforcements on one condition. That if they help the Dragon Country beat back the robots that's attacking their places, then maybe, just maybe, the dragons can lend their army to Knothole, or some of their people to Knothole, and help them kick some ass. So, obviously Sally doesn't understand how Sonic can even make this happen, which is when Sonic ends up asking if Tails and Rotor can boot up the portal again. He has to make a few calls. Dun 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 dun! Shadow and Rouge get involved. Mainly because they were invited to the party, and, well, after the week Sonic and friends have spent in Knothole, let's just say Shadow and Rouge have wondered where the hell these guys have been. So, of course, Sonic ends up explaining to them to come to this cool dimension to help them, and after being given the rundown, Shadow reluctantly agrees to help because Rouge is bored as hell and thinks that if Eggman is causing trouble somewhere else, then it's their responsibility to stop him. And of course, they ask if they can lend them a few of GUN's vehicles. Dun-ta-da-dun! Shadow and Rouge not only become playable characters, but they bring some cool vehicles with them. This is, of course, where the leader of the, well, dragon army, by the name of Dulcie the Dragon, was it Dulcie or Dulcie or, hold on, let me quickly look this shit up. Dulcie the Dragon. Yeah, Dulcie the Dragon ends up basically explaining that she can and will lend her army to Knothole if they can somehow miraculously help them beat back the robotic menace. So, Sonic asking Shadow if he can throw out a few Chaos Blast and Spears out their way, we end up getting a pretty cool level. First things first, we get a pretty cool vehicle section where, you know, you have to literally sail all the way to the, all the way to the actual fight. And what ends up happening is, it's revealed that the dragons have been able to keep the robots back to the edge of the border. So Sonic and friends show up, and Sonic and Shadow, you pretty much get a really badass dual team mission where you play as Sonic and Shadow as they just up and destroy these robots. They just fucking destroy them. And you get a really cool on-the-water boss fight too. Like, seriously, it's gonna be fucking awesome. This is just one big, badass, epic fighting scene for the most part. But of course, when Sonic and Shadow finally meet up with, the actual, basically with the actual leader of the dragons, or at least the leader of the dragon military, Dulcie, let's just say she's actually pretty damn happy to see them. Like, literally incredibly happy to see them. And basically says that since they've made a deal, she has to keep it. And, after all of that pretty much happens and the army is basically beaten back, Dulcie offers her services and pretty much offers to travel to Knothole along with some of her, soldiers in order to help build Knothole to a much bigger place. Now here's something I'm going to do. As you progress through the story, Knothole gets bigger and bigger. There'll be some more houses built, and the main headquarters is also going to start having other people there as well. Other animalistic characters. This was an idea that Charai 5 had for Sonic Forces that I just fucking love, so I'm stealing it for this idea. As in, the more people you recruit and the more people you bring together, the more people are actually going to show up at Knothole. You'll basically see them, just hanging around and doing things until missions, and the entire idea of this game is that it's going to be a mission-based game. This Sonic game is going to go back to a very simplistic style of gameplay. It's going to be a mix between the adventure style of gameplay and the boost style of gameplay. I know many people don't like the boost style of gameplay and think it's best as the whole, basically it's more best kept to being a straightforward, special stage, similar to how they're treated in Sonic Frontiers. But honestly, as cool as it would be to have a full open world or open zone where you can just go in and just do however you want to, the type of story I've written doesn't fit that type of game. And having a mission-based Sonic game where you hop into levels and hop out of them, honestly can still be fantastic and fun. If anything, it can be phenomenal. So yeah. You got levels built similarly to the adventure games with multiple paths and incredible places to explore, red metal scattered around, cool power-ups and collectibles, and you're playing as multiple characters doing multiple different missions. And of course, the more missions you complete, the more locations you unlock, and the more things you're able to do. So yeah, basically getting back to the actual story, what ends up happening is that Dulcie ends up coming up with a pretty cool idea on how they can, how they can get to more places in the Eggman Empire. And her idea is literally to make it so that their little dimensional portal can also, well, teleport them to different places. And while Tails and Rotor at first don't think that's a worthwhile idea, eventually they realize that that's probably the smartest idea that they could have potentially had. And they also realize that this is probably an idea they should have thought of a long time ago. But they need some more tools in order to upgrade it, thus opening up some more missions for you to play as Tails, Bunny, and, well, Antoine, in order to go to some of Eggman's recycling plants in order to steal some more equipment in order to upgrade the portal. Meanwhile, Shadow and Rouge end up getting some main story missions where Sally ends up talking with them and asking if they could recruit their GUN military in order to come in and help. But turns out Shadow and Rouge don't think that's a smart idea. If GUN came in to help, it would mean that they would end up getting something incredibly big out of it. Plus, they already called in their favors with them by getting them the vehicles. And well, they're lucky that they're able to keep the vehicles in the dimension for as long as possible. Also, a cool detail that I want to show is that the portal itself is also going to get bigger and bigger and bigger to let in more people and to have them teleport to different places, to really show that shit's getting bigger and better. But after Eggman's forces were beaten back, obviously Eggman himself isn't going to be too pleased with this. And in fact, he's now going to realize that Sonic is finally in this dimension. And he's going to be pissed. Oh, he's going to be pissed. He's going to be so angry that he's basically going to command Orbot and Cubot to prepare their backup plan. Basically, Eggman has given Metal Sonic a few upgrades. And now, this new Metal Sonic is gonna look like a combination between Mecha Sonic and Neo Metal Sonic. Something that's way more deadly and way more horrifying. And of course, Eggman will say that he might not know where the rebels are hiding, but he'll sniff them out one way or another. And that's all the time I have for this podcast episode. Thank you all so much for listening to this podcast episode of the How I Would Make series. And if you want me to continue this fantastic How I Would Make idea of how I would introduce the Freedom Fighters into Sonic the Hedgehog games, please be sure to comment down below and share this video with your friends. I've decided to make a threshold on how many, people, on how much I, need on a specific video before I continue with the topic. Kind of like how the YouTuber Kitty Monk has this thing called the Dagmar threshold, where if a video reaches a certain number of views, then she will continue talking about that specific topic or that specific character. And honestly, I think I want to do that with the How I Would Make series. So the idea is basically going to be this. Since I'm still incredibly small and don't have that many people watching my videos, if this video can get to at least 150 views and around 50 likes, I will make a second episode of this. But until then, I just want to let you all know that, to remember, everything I sing, everything I say, and everything I play, I do it for love. Bye, guys.
Don't you wanna feel right again? Don't you wanna feel whole? Don't you wanna feel